Okay, we're live. Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Scholar Gypsies. I'm doing a live stream today, a lunchtime live stream with Derek Blighe, the founder and leader of Ireland First, and he's standing in Ireland South as a European election candidate. So I am very happy to have him on here today to have a chat. Welcome, Derek, and thanks for joining me.
How you doing, Jory? Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. I suppose, Derek, many of my viewers will be familiar with your face, your videos, the activism work you've been doing over the last few years. And I suppose my first question is a kind of basic one. What was the trigger point for you to pick up the camera the first time and go, start and shooting some of these videos of what was going on around, asylum seekers and people being kind of shipped into houses and, you know, properties around the country? And I suppose following on from that, when was the first time you understood that the Irish state were taking an interest in what you were doing? And I don't mean a good, beneficial interest in what you were doing, and the Irish media.
Yeah, the first time I picked up a phone to start broadcasting myself, it was actually, look, many people will know that I am good friends and um, associates, right, with Philip Dwyer. Um, Philip actually founded the Men of Ireland Trek when we were all locked in our homes in March of 2020. Philip launched, right, the Men of Ireland Trek, and the goal was to get men specifically from all around Ireland together, right, to speak about what was going on in our country, to form alliances, to share ideas, and to make friendships. So the first time we met up the Dublin Mountains. I was actually right in crutches at the time. I had a knee injury, and I climbed the mountain that day in crutches. The lads gave me a hand, and we talked and we walked for hours, and you know we realised that we had a lot in common. So from then on, we met every couple of weeks, and we went to various different places, walked and talked, and sometimes new people came along, and sometimes the old people didn't show up, and that was fine. But there was like it was growing all the time. But there was one day when there's a building in Port Arlington, I believe. Yeah, it's called the East End Hotel, and it had been packed full of African men, mostly Somalian. So we were headed there on one particular day. I think it was a March of. Do you know what? I can't even remember
March
the year it was
22,
now.
probably. It was early on anyway.
Maybe it was early on. Maybe March of 22. You're right. I think, yeah. And Philip was due to come. Philip was going to do the live stream, and we were going to do a protest outside to try to let the locals know what was in this building and the danger that they were in. So there was quite a lot of us there, right? But for whatever reason, Philip couldn't make it. So word kind of went around, right, that we needed to do a live stream because obviously physically being there is great, but the intention was to show the rest of the country that we were active, and to show them that it's okay, right, to highlight these things. Right, it's okay to stand up to having dozens or hundreds, right, of undocumented males being lumped into your community, and you don't have to be okay with it. So, with a bit of toing and froing, right, I realised that the onus was on me. So I had a YouTube account, right? So I did a live stream, and I talked for I talked for about 20 minutes. Now, Many people won't believe me when I say this, but I'm actually not. Speaking was never my strongest point. You know, speaking publicly was never my strongest point. I'm not like, I wouldn't be right an extrovert in that way. I wouldn't, jump to a microphone. I'd be the last person. But I suppose push to it, I will take on the challenge. Right. So I did the live stream that day. I got a great response. I couldn't believe that I was able to speak for 20 minutes straight without stopping. Um, and it just showed me that I had a lot of 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 info in my head, and I had a lot to say. And from then on, it just kind of opened itself up. Um, the from there, the next time I really sort of put myself out there online was when there's 8 houses near me in Mitchelstown, and they're old Victorian style houses, and it's in a place called Kingston College, and there was 8 houses that were empty, and word spread in the community after the Russian Ukrainian thing started that the 8 houses were going to be done up for Ukrainian refugees, right? Something that right, all my life I wouldn't really have a problem with. The thing was though that right in the town at the time there was several families who were homeless, who had nowhere to live. They were sleeping in a van.
I remember this.
Um, you know, yeah. So to to do up 8 houses, right in Mitchellstown for foreign nationals, and let me be clear, right, the Ukrainian war is not what you're being told it is. Right, that conflict has been going on right for 10 years now. Right, but the way the media right had portrayed it, it had just started out of nowhere. And this is something that I followed very, very closely for years, and I knew that the story the media were being told, it wasn't genuine. So I basically got myself a sign made up, and it said, "Shouldn't we house the Irish first?" And I stood outside Kingston College for several weeks, and I made phone calls to the managers of the college, and I asked them would they consider um, using one of the houses for one of the local I actually asked them to use half the houses for Ukrainians and half the houses for local homeless people, and they refused. And then I said, "How's about one house?" Right? Because remember there was 8 houses,
Mm.
and I asked them about one house. I said, "What about just one house?" And they said, "No, because the one foundation, which is headed by Bono, all right, had donated a large sum of money, right, to do up these houses specifically for Ukrainians, and that really, really wound me up. It wound me up because Mr. Bono, he he goes around the world and right, he'll tell you that he's a philanthropist and he's a humanitarian, but there was no humanity for Irish families, right? There was no humanity for that family in Mitchelstown. There was only humanity for families, right, from another country.
And
And
just before you go
yeah,
on there, because I just want to give people a recap of that time, like we'll say March 22, April, May 22. And you're talking about media manipulation there of narratives and stories. But one of the manipulations at that particular time, and it's very easy to forget, is that the government never informed anybody in Ireland that they were about to triple or quadruple the number of non-EU asylum seekers. The story being told at the time that everybody that was coming in was Ukrainian. And I think everybody in
mm,
that at that point had a certain level, had a certain level of sympathy that we should help out in some direction. But I think, as you highlighted there with the Portarlington Hotel, that was filled with, non-Ukrainian men.
It was, yeah, it was African men. Yeah, it was African men, and many of us knew what the end game was. We knew that um, there was a push to boost the population of Ireland significantly, and
That's in government
uh,
documents, by the way, as well. Like that's in government documents. That's not like,
what,
you hear this phrases like that are often said to be conspiracy or whatever, but it's in government documents that they want to increase the population a million or whatever it is by 20
yeah,
whatever. So it's not like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
100% there. Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't
It's
mean to
on
interrupt
right.
you.
It's on record. Sleepy Eamon Ryan has said it. Simon Coveney has said it, right, that he would like to see the population of Ireland increase to 10 million people. And he also said that much of that increase would be done with people from outside of Ireland. Um, but yeah, so the the indication was there that they wanted to boost the population, and this was something that right it irked me, right, it riled me up because people were being told that right, we were helping war victims, but on the other side, why weren't we helping the the people of Yemen? Why weren't we helping? We had helped, some Syrians, but why all of a sudden was there a push to bring in, right? And at the time, they went as far as saying an unlimited number of refugees at a time when Ireland already had an extremely significant or homeless crisis. So,
And and a healthcare crisis, like as
and the
in
healthcare crisis.
like we and
Yeah.
a number of crises. But I suppose just the your work. I even when you mentioned that video, because I only the first time I've spoken to you was earlier this week, but I do remember that video. That the one as you say it there, I do remember that video. And when I saw you first in the first couple of videos, my first instinct was, oh, this guy's going to be a problem now because you've got, well, you're intelligent, you're photogenic, you've got that voice that comes from the belly of Ireland, you're a tradesman, and you have you're a family man. And I was thinking, oh, right, this guy could be a problem for the state. When did you recognize first that, you know, maybe state authorities or state agencies or whatever you might call them and the mainstream media were taking an interest? Because you're what you mentioned, Philip Dwyer there, you and Philip, the mainstream media have got very comfortable referring to the two of you guys as far right, like, and I
Yeah.
suppose, when did you notice that first?
The first time I noticed that the state were willing to take extra measures to try to curtail my activities was right. Uh, it was when I entered right the Ukrainian only shop right in Merchants Quay, right. So for those that aren't aware, there was a charity shop in a shopping centre in Cork City, and it was giving free items, but specifically and only for Ukrainian refugees, right? No, that set a precedent, right, as far as I was concerned, because there never had been right a charity shop in Ireland that donated goods only to one nationality, and it was something that right it bothered me and it bothered many people. So what I did was I went to the shop and I picked up an item. I don't know, was it a hat? And I asked right the lady at the front of the shop if I could take the hat, and she said no. She said it's only for Ukrainians. And I said, right, but don't you realize that's discrimination? And she said, it doesn't matter. It's only for Ukrainians. So I took the hat. I spoke to the I walked out of the shop with the hat. I spoke to the security guard. I told him I was taking the hat because it's free for Ukrainians. Why not me? The shop actually closed down that day. It shut down for about 6 to 8 weeks. And the day that the shop reopened, about 8 weeks later, there was a press release saying that they had consulted their lawyers, and anybody uh, who attempted to go to the shop again, not being of Ukrainian descent, right, and tried to take something, would be arrested. Right. So I got my phone and I went straight back down to the shop, not allowing any, threats to bother me. I don't get back down from things like that. So I went back to the shop again and I walked in the door, and there was I don't know, it was a t-shirt and a pair of gloves. And I walked up to the counter again and I asked the girl, I said, can I take these? And she said, no, right, they're just for Ukrainians. So once again, I told her, right, that was discrimination. So I stepped outside the door of the shop. I didn't even leave the shopping centre. I stepped outside the door of the shop and I waited for the Gardaí. The Gardaí arrested me. I was taken to the Bridewell Garda station. I was held for 6.5 hours, and the right, I was actually charged with burglary. So we're going into an open shop and
where everything was
taking
free.
a free item and stepping outside the threshold of the door. I was charged with burglary. I now realise, right, the burglary charge was contrived, because the following day the Gardaí came to my home, right, and they took my owned, legally held firearms worth about €4,500. They took them from my home, and right, I haven't seen them since. The burglary charge was subsequently dropped because they knew it was nonsense, and a Section 4 theft, which is basically shoplifting, charge was laid against me. Right, but that was when I realised that the state and the Gardaí were willing to fabricate a charge just right to try to come down on me.
They were
The firearms have.
yeah. Well, what I just say, sorry to interrupt you. They're like
Yeah.
what we can what when you see the pattern behavior since then to now, you could say in a sense they're testing your resolve there when they're doing that, because a lot of people, when you get charged with a burglary, when the summons or whatever it is comes in the door, it'll frighten most people. Like, do you know what I mean? In terms of putting you off doing anything else, but you obviously walked through that and kept going.
You know, I can't speak for everyone, Jory, but I have absolutely no problem going to a prison cell, right, for what I believe in, because I know that what I did was not right. It was not the wrong thing to do. It was the right thing to do. Right, what that shop was doing is wrong. What the Irish government is doing is wrong. And I actually welcome, right, the Irish government to throw me in prison, right, because I think that I've got, right, a profile now that if they throw me in prison, it will, set something off in this country. And I'm happy, right, to be the fall guy, right, for that, for the future, right, of this country, right, and for my children as well, because I certainly won't take what they are doing lying down.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that happened, we'll say, in the course of time is, at some point, you decided to set up a political party, Ireland First.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I remember I was kind of like all of us, we all kind of keep an eye on what the others are doing. And I have to admit, I thought you meant, I says, oh, I'm not sure if that's the right decision when I thought about it at the time, because I thought you make a very good politician. But how did did setting up Ireland First bring more pressure in terms of attention that you were getting from, maybe perhaps nefarious sources? And what's that experience been like for you? I assume you have no previous political experience or members of parties and stuff like that. How has that been as an experience to try and grow something, a grassroots kind of political party?
Well, it was definitely something. It was definitely something new. I have absolutely no political experience whatsoever. Um, but what I've learned since then, right, is politics isn't something that you can do a degree in, right? It's not something that you can really, um, you can do a degree in it, but you don't need to, right? Politics is being able to speak to people, or being able to read the room, being able to find a solution, right, to a problem, and right, maybe negotiate a deal. So you know it it's something that some people are are geared towards naturally, right? Others maybe not. But setting up the party it was tough. It was tough work. There was a lot of there was a lot of mistakes made. There was a lot of things we had to do. Two and three times. We built the website, I think, three times now at this stage. Um, the registration wasn't easy. There was no one really there to help us out. There was people with me. I've got a deputy, right? Her name's Margaret Maguire. She's right the Ireland First candidate for the Northwest. Um, she was a member. She was involved in trying to set up a party right over COVID. It wasn't successful, but she sort of knew a lot of the ins and outs. And also, we have a secretary. Her name's Sarah Herity. She's worth her weight in gold. Um, right when it comes to admin and contacting the different government bodies about uh, the registration. So this certainly wasn't something that I did on my own. And Ireland First isn't just about me. It's about there's a team of us there. There's also my brother, right? My brother Tommy Murphy. He's been he's been by my side right since the early days of the Men of Ireland, and he's helped me out with a lot of things, and he's a great man for advice. And also Philip Dwyer, he's helped me out with a lot of things as well. So um, it was tough going. Uh, we made a lot of mistakes, but we rectified everything. And I actually think now that the future is fairly bright for Ireland First, because I think people see us in a different light,
You're,
to what they see the other parties.
I actually kind of agree with you on that, because you were there. We've seen two or three political groupings set up since then, and I think actually, in hindsight, it was probably beneficial that you'd given yourself a year before.
Mm,
We're in the election zone now, and we're in all of that stuff, and I can see that certain parties, certain groupings, because of time constraints, they're I might say they're taking shortcuts in some of the stuff they're doing
mm.
because they don't have the time. Just let me ask you, how many candidates are you running in the European elections, and how many candidates are you running in local elections?
We are running three candidates right for the European elections. There's me in Ireland South, Philip Dwyer is in Dublin, and Margaret Maguire is in the Northwest. And then also the three European candidates are also running locally. And on top of that, I think we've got six other right, local candidates with another couple maybe right about to come on board. So not huge numbers,
But you have
not
to build it.
huge.
Yeah, but it takes time to build. I'm not affiliated with any political party, and I've said in this podcast before, I'm probably not going to vote in this election just purely on a personal reason, but personal reasons. But it takes time to build. The seeds don't grow overnight. That's
No.
that that would be my view on this. This situation. If you're successful, Derek, um, and I was talking to a campaign manager last week, and he reckoned in the Northwest, at least, you'd need 70,000 first preference votes to get elected. I suppose, where do you see your electorate, and what's your top priority if you get elected into the European Parliament, and how do you tend to go about it?
My top priority would have to be, right, to try to address the numbers, right, that are coming into the country. Um, trying to do that by voting. If say for instance, we get all three members in, and no other EU nationalist candidates are elected from Ireland. With three people, most will say, "Oh, look, you don't have a chance of scratching it." But the route that we're taking is, um, the platform that we have now. We have it simply by using a smartphone and our voice.
Hmm.
If we are elected to Europe, then that voice becomes significantly louder. We haven't gotten where we are today by having any political pull, right? But the Irish government are still um, taking notice of us. They're still maneuvering in ways that shows, right, that what we're doing is working. Helen McEntee, Leo Varadkar, who's gone now, thankfully, but right, the current government would not be addressing, right, the asylum scam in Ireland had people like myself not been doing, right, what we were doing.
I think that's fair.
Social media,
I think that's fair
yeah,
comment. Like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So combine that then with um, a successful European election run. You're then not just a bricklayer with a smartphone. You're then an EU candidate. The media have done everything they can to ignore us. They give us absolutely no coverage. It's going to
I
be a
do.
lot harder for them to ignore us when and if we get elected to Europe.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things you just touched on there is because there's two. I'm just trying to think of the flashpoints in my head about things that have popped up in mainstream about you. I seem to recall, and maybe I'm wrong about this, that was your did the Allied Irish Bank remove banking services from your family or your wife or something like that? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my wife, she had her own Allied Irish bank account. She used it just for groceries and paying bills and whatnot. I can't remember what date it was now, but she got a letter saying that they had decided, right, to shut down her bank account. There was no more information in the letter. It was just that your bank account has been selected for closure. You've got 30 days to move your funds out.
Hmm.
So she went into the bank and she asked the bank, well, what's going on? Why are you closing down my bank account? And right, the bank manager actually told her, right, that she didn't know. So she pushed her. She said, can you find out? So she came back and she said that they found some irregularities, right, in the transactions. So my wife said, right, can you point me to one? And she said no. She said, all right, so you're closing down my bank account right? Because you're saying you found something, right, you don't like, right, in the transactions, but you can't even point to a transaction. And she said no. So we filed a complaint with the WRC, and they contacted the bank, and I don't know, they did their processes, and we basically got a letter from the bank a few months later saying that when you sign a contract with AIB, I don't know right about the other banks. I'm sure right the other banks are similar, but when you right sign a contract with AIB,
Mhm.
they have a right to shut down your bank account at any time, and they do not have to have a reason for it.
Okay.
And that's what they did to me. Um, People will remember I went into the bank one day, and I filmed the bank manager right inside in the branch, and I asked her why she was doing this, and right, I got no answer. She basically right, she told me to get out of the branch, and I did. But
Wow.
that's
Wow.
another instance, Jory, of right what I believe to be the state trying to put pressure right on me. Um,
And was that count ever reinstated, Derek?
no, no, no. We had to right, move the money out of it, and right, we put it into a different bank account, and the other bank account is
Hmm.
still going at the moment. But
But it's always things like that are always in the back of your head, like, do you know what I mean, going forward, like, do you know, it's kind of, again, you're probably, I'd be leaning towards your interpretation being correct about why that was done to your wife.
yeah,
Just in
yeah,
terms of your person, you're a tradesman yourself. Has it affected your work?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I can't get onto building sites right anymore. Like I can't get onto large building sites anymore.
I get you.
Small local jobs are fine, yeah, but um, and it's not the builder's fault either. The problem is, Jory, if I go to a large building site where there's a significant number right of other workers, and if somebody recognizes me on that building site and word gets out, the following morning you're gonna have 15 or 20 blue-haired goons like at the gate, waving signs, and no builder wants to be dealing with that.
Yeah, no, I
So
guess it. Yeah.
so yeah, 100%. Right, it has affected right my work. But I'm still able to pick up some bits and pieces here and there, which keeps us ticking over.
Yeah,
And
but
right, my supporters help out as well. So that always that
that
always
all
helps.
helps. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
No, I suppose a follow-on question from that is, you know, I kind of, whenever I'm talking about kind of the broad collective that have formed over since COVID or during COVID as the kind of resistance or whatever, you're probably one of the top two or three recognizable faces that is in the alternative space, we'll say. Let's put it that provide content or whatever in whatever manner. What's that been like for you personally when you're going to places and people know, they recognize your face and they know you? Has that been a big change for you?
It is. It is. It's a big change, right? But Irish people are funny that way. Most people recognize me, right? They don't approach me. They kind of give me a look, and they keep on moving. A lot of people do approach me, but you know, real life is not what it's like on social media. If you go onto my Twitter feed now and you go to any of my posts and go into the comments, you'll see a lot of messages from people saying, if you only looked at the Twitter message, you'd say, "Geez, this guy's hated." Um, but like real life isn't like that. I get basically no abuse, right? In public ever. The right, the right, the most abuse I get most
You're just breaking up a little bit there, Derek.
you're back.
I'm back. Sorry, it was me that dropped
Brilliant,
there.
brilliant.
Sorry about
The
that.
the most, yeah, no worries. Right, I was just saying that the most abuse, right, that I've gotten in the last few months was one day I was parked on the side of the road and I was making a phone call, and a guy drove past me on the other side, and he beeped the horn and he waved at me, and I looked and I waved back, and then he did that, and then he kept driving. But that's it. So no, it's been good, and right, the flip side to that is then right at the doors. Most people know me. Most people are happy to talk to me at the doors, and uh, most people are very supportive, right, of what I do. Which keeps me going.
That's good. Now, just apologies there. I had a slight break in my reception here, so you might have had about 30 seconds of break off in the coverage. I suppose, Derek, if we bring it up to date, and you're in the throes of an election campaign now. So how's that been going? What have you found? What have you learned? And kind of what parts of the constituency of Ireland South have you been focusing on? In the last week, and we'll say the week to come.
Yeah. So what have I found? There's more support out there than you think. You just have to speak to people. You just you know, have to ask them about right the state of Ireland at the moment, and most people are happy right, to open up and tell you that they're not happy basically. There's an awful lot of resentment growing out there at the moment. There's an awful lot of there's an awful lot of people out there who who don't feel like Ireland is moving in the right direction. Um, I've right, been knocking on doors actually since last year. I actually started canvassing right in the summer of last year, and the majority of people that I meet are happy to speak to me at the door right about what's going on. So far, so right, I'm running right for local elections, obviously in my own area for my, but I'm also running right for Europe. um, the areas we focused on lately are mainly Cork, and I've been to Tipperary. But next week I plan on doing parts of Cork City, and also I'm going to Wicklow and Wexford. And right, the following week, then I think we're doing Carlow and Waterford and Limerick, I believe. So we do plan on hitting all the counties in Ireland South uh, in the next few weeks. And right, election campaigning definitely has ramped up. Right, as of now, I was canvassing all day yesterday. I didn't do right, any social media yesterday because right I was just so busy at the doors. Um, but
Are
right
you
after
comfortable
this,
knocking on doors, Derek?
very very
Yeah.
comfortable,
Because
very comfortable.
I think that's a trick. A lot. I think a lot of people are relying too much on social media. They you can convince yourself. It's like what you were saying about all the negativity on Twitter, and you go out in the real world and it's different. I think
Yeah,
it's a bit like that in the election campaign. You can get fooled into thinking, you might have a 10,000 video um, watches on a video and think, oh, that's votes. But
yeah,
I think I'm glad to hear that you're knocking on doors, because I think that is because you do have the one thing I think you do have going for you over a lot of people is name recognition. Like when you go places, a lot of people recognize your face. So
yeah, yeah. 100%, 100%. And some people, they answer the door, right? A lot of people don't even recognize me, right? But when I say my name, they go, "Oh, you're Derek Blighe. Ah, I've heard a lot about you." And, I meet all ages and yeah, but it's very every door I knock on, right, is a different story, but it's mostly positive, you know.
Mhm. What's the
But
number
it's like
one?
it's
What's the number one issue? I suppose. What's the number one local issue, and what's the number one European issue that would say the bigger issue that you're finding on the door?
the boring answer to that is jury, right? And Luke Ming Flanagan said the other day that the number one issue, right, that he's getting 20 to 1 is cost of living. Cost of living is right a major issue, but the number one local issue and the number one European issue, right, that I'm getting, right, is immigration. People are noticing huge numbers of strange faces around the town. Um, their town, right? They're afraid, right, to walk around the streets at night. I spoke to that woman yesterday. Um, we'd never met, right? I had never been to her door before, right? But she opened the door and she said, "Oh, Derek Blighe," she said, "it's so good to meet you." She said, "I saw your van outside with your sticker on it." She said, "I was expecting you to call." She said, "I've sat down with all my family." And she said, "We've got a huge family, and I've sat down with all my family, and we're all voting for you." All right. And I said, "Why?" I said, "Why have you decided that, well, you want to vote for me?" And she said, "Right, the number one reason is," she said, "my 15-year-old who walks to school every day, he goes to school in the town." She said, "He can't go the route that he used to go. I make him go the long route now, right, which is through the estates, because, right, there's so many strange people around the town now." She said, I'm terrified for him." She said, "You're the only one who's speaking common sense about this. You're the only one who's been talking about it." And she said, "We've actually sat down about this, Derek." She said, "Cousins, uncles, aunts, and we've all decided that we're voting for you." And that was that was really uplifting, But
Yeah,
the number, right? It's immigration, jury. It's housing. It's services. It's cost of living, But I always try to explain to people that uh, immigration is directly linked to services, to housing, to healthcare, to school places. It's directly linked. The more people we bring into the country, the more pressure that has on, right, the housing market, the more pressure that has on school places, the more pressure that has on, right, trying to get a doctor's appointment, trying to get a dentist, right, appointment. I spoke to one woman one day and she said, "What are you going to do about the dentists?" She said, "I can't get a dentist appointment." And I said, "Do you know why, right, you can't get a dentist appointment?" And she said, "All right, because the dentists are lazy." And I said, "I can assure you, the dentists aren't lazy." I said, "The dentists want to make as much money, right, as possible." And she said, "Well, what can it be so, right? I go down there and I had my young fella last week and he'd a sore tooth and I went down to the dentist and they said, 'Oh, there's a 4 week wait.'" And I said, "There's a 4 week wait," I said, "because, right, the waiting list is so long." She said, "No, but there was nobody in the waiting room." I said, you know, "It's bigger than that." I said, "The waiting lists, right, they are being filled up." Like, right, what many people don't know is, Jory, we went, right, from having a population in the mid 90s, right, of 3.6 million people. And now today we stand in and around 5.2 million people. We haven't gained a huge number, right? We haven't gained many more doctors and dentists to keep up with that population growth. It's the same, right? It's the same for housing.
Well, we can
Yeah,
see the pressure the health service is under, like, and it was bad to begin with. COVID made it
yeah,
worse, and it seems to have come out of COVID like some sort of basket case system.
yeah,
But one
yeah.
thing I wanted to ask you there, because you brought up the name of Flanagan there, and
Mm,
he's a guy, like, if I was ever talking to anyone looking at the constituency where I'm living, I'd say Ming's seat is definitely under big threat, especially from anybody on the independent kind of new party side. Who would you say in your constituency of the existing politicians, whose seat would you be targeting, or whose do you think is most likely to, be under pressure?
Grace O'Sullivan of the Green Party. I think the Green Party are going to struggle right for the next election. The Green Party is kind of that. A Green Party vote is kind of a trendy vote, right? When everything's going great, you've plenty of money in your pocket, and you've no cares in the world, right? Those are the types of people, right, who vote for the Green Party because it's kind of like fix the environment. Ah, sure, who doesn't want to fix the environment? But the
We
more
don't all have
strife.
50 grand to buy a Tesla, though.
Well, exactly, yeah, exactly. And I think the last few years, the changes in society, the impact on the cost of living, has really forced people to stop, right, and take a look at, right, the different candidates that are running. And you know Green Party politics, it's a vote for the Green Party is an absolute waste of a vote. They're high tax, they're high spending on rubbish infrastructure. We've got wind turbines now sat all over this country. Right, we've shut down our peat powered electricity production, and they're trying to get rid of meat. They're increasing the cost of fuel. They're banning fuel. You can now go to prison for burning excessive turf. You can go to prison for selling turf, a fuel that we've burned for thousands of years in this country. Um, right, all pushed by the Green Party. Meanwhile, China is building record numbers of coal powered plants. They're responsible for 30% of the world's emissions, and the Green Party will never mention this. Except, right, in fact, sleepy Eamon Ryan had a delegate over from China a few weeks ago, and he might as well have kissed his feet because he was there to welcome him with open arms, and there was absolutely no mention of it. The same man, right? Eamon Ryan is flying all around the planet. He's put on thousands of miles, for nonsense meetings,
Oh,
and you know,
he was over to China it was either last year or the tail end of 22, Eamon Ryan. I don't know
right?
whether it was Enterprise Ireland, and he hadn't zipped to say about China and their
Yeah,
emissions. I mean,
yeah, yeah. Right? You can barely take a breath full of air in Chinese cities, but because the smog is so bad, right? That smog is also, it's being dispersed around the planet, But Little Ireland, a small island in the middle of the Atlantic, is being absolutely hammered, right, with climate policies. And people aren't stupid, right? People get
no.
comfortable, right? Is the problem. People have been comfortable for many years, and they've kind of said nothing. But I think this time around, the Green Party, right, and the two parties who jumped into bed with them, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, are definitely going to take a hit.
Let me just, I have only one or two questions left, Derek. We're rolling
Yeah.
at 50 minutes. But I'm just on the topic you brought up there now. Have you bumped into many farmers, and what's their reaction to you? Because a lot of what you'd be saying because the farming community are really are the custodians of our environment, if you like, and good ones generally speaking. But they're being treated almost like you're being treated in terms of, what they can do with their land. Reducing the
Yeah,
number of cattle and sheep and all that kind of stuff. How have you found them as a cohort?
farmers are pissed off, Jory. Farmers are pissed off. Farmers now recognise that the government are trying, right, to make them extinct. They know it now. Right? Whatever misconceptions they had, right, a few years ago, if you tried to we tried to tell farmers, right, for the last few years, 2020 and all that, the government are coming for your land. Um, right, many of them said, "Stop, that's a conspiracy theory." Right, now it's becoming clear with the taxes, right, that they're hammering on them, right, the regulations are through the roof. Farmers are spending more time filling out forms, right, and jumping through hoops, right, for climate change, right, than they are for farming, you know and right, many farmers recognize now that, right, the government are not on their side, and they are looking for parties, right, and candidates, right, who aren't afraid to call out what's going on. And over the next few weeks, right, you're going to see me get a lot more vocal, right, about the green agenda and the damage, right, that it's doing to farms around the country. Right, the green agenda, um, what's green now used to be red. Okay, right, the old communist days, it was called the Red Terror. Right, now it's the Green Terror. It's right. It's got a different name, but it's got the same end result. Right, the Irish government are trying to seize land in this country, and the way they're trying to do that is they're trying to put farmers off their land with stupid, nonsensical um, rules, regulations, and taxes. Right, they're trying to make farming um, non non-profitable, right? And then they'll swoop in with a payment, right, to give to the farmers, right, to get them off their land, and that land will then be used to house foreign nationals. And the more foreign nationals that they can bring into the country, the more watered down the Irish national vote will be. It's very, very simple. It's a very straightforward plan. Um, will they succeed? Not if I've anything to do with it.
Okay, fair play. I suppose, Derek, the last question I have to you is I wrote actually an article, and it was kind of loosely on what would at the start of the election cycle, if you like, when I think you were just after announcing, and a number of candidates were announcing that they were going running in the European elections and stuff. There was an article, the mainstream media took an interest in, I think it was like a court case for defamation against you. What was that about, and where is that in the cycle of things that's going on in your life at the moment?
So the court case was a defamation case. It was lodged with the High Court in Dublin on the 8th of March. It was lodged by a guy called Adrian McCarthy. He's he he used to be the owner of the building in Fermoy that we protested outside. We don't know if he still is the owner because there was a little bit of fidgeting with the records, but he filed, right, a defamation case with me, right, on the 8th of March. Now, what date is it today? Just off the top of
It's
your head, Jerry.
for the 4th of May.
It's the 4th of May, so we're almost 2 months later, and I have not received even a smoke signal from the High Court or from his solicitors, right, to let me know, right, that they are suing me. The mainstream media were happy to jump all over it and make it headline news. Derek Blighe is sued. It was pure sensationalism, You know, it was trending on Twitter for 2 days. A lot of people thought that, oh, Derek Blighe, he's finished. They're going to take his house. They're going to clean him out. But you know what? I haven't heard a peep. And what I'm thinking is no, I think, right, they filed those papers simply for the headline because Adrian McCarthy knows that he doesn't have a hope in hell of successfully suing me, nor does he have a hope in hell of getting a single brown penny out of me. Um, but you
And
know, they're happy
so
to
just
go along with the headline.
to just to be clear, you've not received any official notice of this defamation case through a solicitor or anything like that, or
Nothing,
guard. Right. Okay.
absolutely nothing, and it's been almost 2 months. You know, I
Yeah.
almost feel like going to his house again and knocking on his door and saying, you know, Adrian, come on, I've publicity here to make. You know, come on, let's go with this. But like, I've heard nothing. But
Okay.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for another couple of months, and I'm going to contact the media publications that were only chomping at the bit, right, to write up about this, and I'm going to do it publicly. I'm going to say, hey, all right, I haven't heard anything about this case, right? Will you make that front page today? You know, but they probably won't, right? But that's
Mhm.
okay, you know.
Now, just one final question, just to hear your thoughts on this, because we're 4 weeks out from an election. I'm an overthinker and an over worrier sometimes, and one of the concerns I'd have is that I kind of quite feel similar to you about what's behind the doors you're knocking on. A lot of people agreeing with you more than shutting the door in your face. But one of the worries I have is that the state and possibly elements of the media might try to engineer some sort of bigger story than the one you're after talking about there in the defamation case in the week or two before the election to kind of put the kibosh on any alternative voices getting elected. Do you have those concerns or not?
No, not at all, not at all. I think no, right. The media has put itself right in a place in Ireland that every time right they try to come after people like myself, right, they only make us more popular.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that's not to say they won't try it. You know, I've been um, fairly clear, right, about this before. Right, the establishment, they only have a very, very basic set of tools, and it's heavy-handedness. It's bad publicity, and it's heavy-handedness. Um, it's spurious charges. It's you know um fabricated stories. Okay, but when you know, right, that you've done nothing wrong, uh, some people will fold with that pressure. You know, some people will see their name on the paper and they'll see write ups on social media, they'll hear their names on the radio, and a lot of people will fall to that pressure. I'm not one of those people. Like, I'm not one of those people. I
You've
don't,
been through it.
right?
You've been through it a lot. You've been through the fires already, so to speak. Like
Yeah, yeah,
on that
yeah.
score. Listen, Derek, we're
So
running
they
the
can throw
hour.
whatever they want at me, right? They can throw whatever they want at me. I'm happy to take it on the chin and as well bounce back at them. Then right? They're only doing me favors, Jory.
Okay. Listen, Derek, I want to
Yeah.
give you the opportunity at the end to, there's about 270 on the live stream there. Anything you want to talk about in terms of the campaign? Because one of the things I have, and I'm not like endorsing or otherwise any candidate, but I do want to give them the opportunity to speak to the people on the live streams in terms of, because I know resources, physical, financial, and all the rest of it are hard to come by. So if you want to talk directly to people in terms of what help they might they could give to you or your team, or
Yeah, sure, sure. So as many people know, I actually launched a fundraiser a few weeks ago to help to send European election flyers to every single house in the Republic, and I was absolutely blown away right, to be the only EU candidate in the country, right, to not only reach the goal, right, but to go past it. I raised over €10,000, right, quite easily. Okay, flyers have been printed, and right, flyers are going out to every single house, right, in the Republic of Ireland
I
next
think that's
week. One for
did I
me,
2.2 million flyers? Is it, or 2.3 million flyers you've got? Did I
yeah,
see that on your Twitter account?
2.37 million flyers are going out. They're going to go into every single letterbox in the Republic of Ireland, which is phenomenal publicity. Um, but look, there's also um, if if anyone wants to help out, also there's newspaper write-ups, right, that we can pay for. There's Facebook ads, right, that we can also pay for. Um, I've got an ad going out in the newspaper next week. I've also got um, a photographer is coming to help me next week. Um, he's going to be paid, right? He needs to be paid as well. So look, if anyone wants to donate, I'm not asking for any more money, but if anyone wants to help out, right, they can go to my Twitter page or my Facebook page, right? They can donate to the GoFundMe, and right, anything I get will go in, right, to publicising this, right, even further. We've done a huge amount so far, but there's no harm in throwing even more, right, at this. And these are exceptional times in Ireland, and the harder we hit this, the better. So, but I also want to say a massive thank you to everybody who helped out. I really, I'm so humbled, right, for every single donation, right, we got, and yeah, look, you know, here's to the future.
Okay. Thanks a million, Derek, for your time. Enjoyed chatting with you a great deal, and we got through quite a bit. So look, I wish you well in the future, and hopefully at some time, if we're talking again, it'll be perhaps as a European member of the European Parliament. So thanks, and I'm just going to end the live stream now, folks. Anyone else
Thanks very
wants to?
much, Jerry.
Not at all. Not at all.